Bismillah wa salatu wa salam. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode of Richard Show and Co. And tonight we have Ustath Alyas Karmani. He's our guest for Tuesdays, and inshallah he will continue with us for Ramadan. And he will share, we will talk about different topics, inshallah, in Ramadan in particular. We will be talking about different stories and extract some benefits from them. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how to be productive in Ramadan. Since Ramadan can be really a hard month for some people, and it could be anti-productivity to some. And tonight, we will be sharing some practical tips and insights from Ustath Alyas Karmani, who's also a psychologist and a counselor, therapeutic counselor as well. So, without any further ado, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, akhi.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless everyone experiencing another Ramadan this year, inshallah, and may it be heavy on everyone's scales, and may it be a shifa for them in this world and in the next world, inshallah, and may it elevate them and reform them as an individual and as an ummah. Ameen.
Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ameen. Jazakallah khair. As I was saying in my introduction, it's sometimes with Ramadan, it could be really hard. Today I had an interview with the BBC and they were talking about the Fast FM, and we touched on how how Ramadan could be not enjoyable experience for some people, and then it could be also under-productivity because people can be just practically not able to produce during the day. The night is short. What do you think about this? Is that the case, or is it not the case?
No, I totally dismiss this whole idea that Ramadan is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if anything, Ramadan is a time of the year where the Muslim is even more productive, has more potential. No, Richard, people don't realize what they can achieve in the month of Ramadan.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah.
Okay, and what we've done is that we've limited ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of this is a month of Siyam and Qiyam, of worship and Ibadat, Alhamdulillah. No, this is a month of holistic, comprehensive, total development and reform. And if you can't do it in this month, you can't do it in any other month. Yeah. And Richard, no, I'm going to completely challenge this. Ramadan is easy. And 5 days, 20 hours now. I'm doing 20 hours of fast every day. Alhamdulillah. For 3 years, I've been doing it. Okay, it's intermittent fasting, yeah? Okay. 3 years, I'm coming up to, Richard, now, as I'm sat here talking to you, it's been 19 hours, no food. Okay? Does it affect me?
I don't see it as affecting you.
No, it does not affect me one bit. In fact, cognitively, it's been proven that actually fasting improves the cognitive state.
MashaAllah.
Okay, so this is interesting because we have ketones, and ketones are very good as a fuel for the brain. And actually, there's so many other... And Richard, for me, I've been fasting by Allah Ta'ala's grace now 30, doing it properly. Obviously, as a child, we used to mess around a bit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But for 30 years now, alhamdulillah, this is the 30th Ramadan that I fasted, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah.
And Richard, what I would say is this. For many years, I had a mindset that Ramadan was difficult.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when I developed a mindset and an approach, which is that Ramadan is easy,
mm-hmm.
I conquered Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, by Allah's grace, I conquered Ramadan. Okay.
That's interesting.
And I'll give you an example. I remember maybe about 10 years ago, I had to move an office. Our office had to be moved.
Okay.
And it was in Ramadan, and it was quite a warm day. And a lot of the staff, they deliberately didn't turn up because they knew there was, and it was just me and another person, a brother. We had to move all the office equipment in a van, put it into storage. And I spent a whole day fasting, whole day grafting, lifting, heavy, moving back and forth, everything else, shifted it. At the end of it, I did not find myself in any way tired or exhausted or thirsty or any of that. I found, if anything, it's mind over matter. And this is the point, this is the central point I want to make about being productive.
Yes, I can see you getting into the point that your main challenge is actually yourself and change your mindset.
being productive, being productive is recognizing we have enormous potential that we underuse.
Mm-hmm.
Even when, you know, Richard, even when you're tired and exhausted, you still have 40% in the tank.
Okay.
Yeah. That, even the SAS, you know, the SAS to do this endurance stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They actually identify that when they hit the wall, it's a psychological wall. If they overcome it, they realize there's still 40% left in reserve.
Allahu Akbar.
Okay. Interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now look, so the point here I'm saying is this. When you can realize I can keep away from food and from and eating nourishment and from all of the things which are haram, okay, in the Siyam, I can keep away from it for 18 hours, 20 hours, whatever.
Okay.
That means as a Muslim, as an individual, whatever I apply myself to, I can achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Because Siyam is a discipline.
It is
and it's
indeed,
an act which is symbolic of something more important. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, to develop a state of taqwa, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But also what it shows is that the human being's capability of using the mind to overcome matter. That hunger is a state of mind. Tiredness, obviously you need to rest the body, of course. Okay, you need to feed the body. But we are using ourselves excessively. Now, this verse, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ, eat and drink but do not be excessive.
Mm-hmm.
Eat 1/3, 1/3, 1/3.
Yes.
What stops us from doing this? And by doing this, following the healthiest lifestyle you can imagine, what's stopping you is your heart and your mind. Your
Suppose there's an
greed.
issues.
Yeah.
There's an issue
And
of
what
commitment
stops
and
us
discipline there.
This is it. And so my program, what I call it, 30 R's of Ramadan, and that's words
Okay.
beginning with R.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in number one word, the first word is restraint. Because Siyam itself, it means control and restraint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And look, Allah Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, you know, that قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Your prayer, your nusuk, your sacrifice, your manasik, the rituals that you follow, your living, your dying, your whole life from beginning to the end is for Rabbil Alameen. This is about discipline, it's about devotion, it's about juhud, it's about sacrifice. Even Allah says in the Quran, you know, that He created insan. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. He's created us toiling away, working away. But we've got to ask ourselves what we sacrifice for. You know what, Richard, what's really interesting? A person will go hungry if it's for the dunya. A person will save every penny if it's for the dunya.
Mm-hmm.
A person will... you look at athletes,
Mm-hmm.
how much discipline and application they have in their sport, in the diet, in the nutrition, in the training, in the technique, in the practice. Why? Because they're focused on a goal, on a target, on an objective.
Because there's commitment.
And they're able to
discipline.
make... Absolutely. They're able to make the necessary sacrifice, commitment, devotion, restraint, control, mind over matter to achieve their objective. So now you're saying now, me as a Muslim, who has a desire to please Rabbil Alameen, to do something which is going to be beneficial to myself and humanity for the sake of Allah, that if I don't apply myself with the same principles that I have now, restraint, control, discipline, application, rigor, routine, structure, plan, purpose, direction, the list goes on, that I can't achieve that, bi'idhnillah. And what it shows is actually Muslims, you know, we have compartmentalized. You know, Ramadan is Ramadan, we do the Ramadan thing, and then afterwards we get back to normality. No, Ramadan is a means to supercharge your whole year.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting point here, if we can pick on it before going to another point. So it's really interesting because you mentioned keto at some point, and then you went on to say when it just it happens, we had to do one hard labor a day. And let's face it, we're not into hard labors. I mean, we do it every now and then, but we're not really hard labor people because we've got other jobs to do.
Okay.
So it was obviously a bit of a shock to your system, although you've rolled your sleeves up and you've done it. and you were surprised
Yes.
by the result that you actually can do it. And obviously, the lessons that we have from you is that it's mind over matter, as you said, and we'll have to actually. The first challenge is us, but from what you mentioned, also the second challenge is to have the commitment to Allah Azza wa Jal, and that's the main issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we cannot take this away that we are doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ultimately. But what I also want people to realize, okay, and I've actually used the Ramadan and fasting as a discipline that I use every day in my life. As I said, I fast every day. And obviously, this is not a religious fast. I want to make it clear. We fast, the Sunnah fasts on Monday and Thursdays and things like this, yeah? Intermittent fasting, as we know, has been identified as a very healthy lifestyle approach. If you want to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes, and you know with coronavirus at the moment, type 2 diabetes is a very high comorbidity factor. So what they're finding is people with type 2 diabetes, and this is disproportionate in the Muslim community, by the way, Richard. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disorder, and it occurs due to two broad things: eating too much and not doing enough exercise. Basically, that's what it is, yeah?
Okay.
And if you want to reverse type 2 diabetes, the research has shown quite clearly that a program of fasting, okay, where you are basically reducing your calorific intake as well as resting and not causing a spike in your insulin levels, and you're reducing what we call insulin sensitivity, has been one of the most effective ways to actually reverse type 2 diabetes and minimize the onset of type 2 diabetes. So I started it about 5 years ago. I started, I think, intermittent fasting. I've been doing it hardcore for about 3 years. And I was at risk of type 2 diabetes. By Allah Ta'ala's grace, I'm no longer at risk of type 2 diabetes. I don't have to take any medication or anything else. And so fasting, alhamdulillah, the benefits that we have in Ramadan, of the physical impact that fasting has, you can do this every day, alhamdulillah, and get the same benefit. And let me give you just one benefit of fasting, okay? Do you know the biggest internal organ that we have is our digestive system? Yeah. If you was to roll out the intestines, the small intestines, it would be the equivalent of a tennis court in size.
Allahu Akbar.
So, can you believe it? One of our internal organs, if it's rolled out, the surface area is equivalent to a tennis court.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah? That surface area is a barrier between the gut, the digestive system, and the bloodstream.
Okay.
So this is, and through the food nutrients coming to the bloodstream via the liver. So this is interesting. There is a barrier. Yeah. Now, I want you to realize, if this is not healthy, what we're eating and the gut bacteria that we have is called the gut flora. Okay, it's called the binome. Okay, so if the healthy bacteria is not present and we have more unhealthy bacteria, if we eat the wrong food and we have what we call leaky gut, which is that basically you got the wrong things coming through, you are harming an internal organ which is equivalent to the size of a tennis court.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, and it causes, the foods we actually eat are toxic. They actually cause inflammation of that area. And that's why from Ibn Sina through thousands of years of medicine, they recognize the gut is core to overall holistic health. Okay. And what we're doing, one of the things we're doing in the month of Ramadan is actually resting the gut. Alhamdulillah. We're causing the system just to reduce its inflammation. You're reducing the amount of food going into it. You're giving it a break. And one of the amazing things that I find through my approach to fasting and one meal a day approach is that by the morning, everything in my gut is empty. There is no, you could say, digested food in my gut. All of the feces has been removed. Now, I want you to imagine, Richard, I want you to imagine the situation. A person has an internal organ the size of a tennis court. They've had 3 large meals. Okay, 3 large meals, and often the food is that they've eaten is not azka ta'am. Okay, it's not tayyib. Yeah. It's halal, but not tayyib. It's not the best food. It has a bit of roughage, high in meat, high in carbohydrates, high in processed, high in sugar, all of this kind of stuff. You know that sugar is fermenting away. So it's, in essence, what you have is, imagine this is a bus. you have 3 of these buses stuck in your gut digestive system.
Allahu Akbar.
And they're not moving. Eventually they get clogged up like this. Okay, I haven't got a third bus. They get clogged up like this.
Okay.
And they start to ferment, and then they start to putrefy. It's called putrefaction fermentation. Okay, and as a result of that, there is a reversal in your gut bacteria. Now, this then, when there's a reversal in gut bacteria, you're producing toxins and poisons and all this stuff. Guess what? Your largest number of white blood cells are found where? Where are they found, Richard, do you think?
I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, remember the white blood cell, which are your T cells, they're responsible for fighting pathogens. You know, and where is it most likely that pathogenic organisms would enter into your bloodstream? Obviously, through your lungs, through your nose, through your mouth, through your ear, any orifice. But obviously the gut, you have all of these pathogens.
Okay.
And that's why you have the largest concentration of white blood cells there in order to repel pathogens.
Okay.
Now, if these white blood cells are spending all of their time focusing on attacking the bad bacteria in your gut and not defending the rest of your immune system, what happens to your immune system? It goes down.
Okay.
And you know who's saying this?
Who?
Richard, who's saying? Allah Ta'ala.
Subhanallah.
وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ.
Yes.
This is half of a verse of the Quran, which
Eat
is
and
80.
drink
Ibn al-Qayyum said.
Excessive.
Yeah, exactly. Half a verse of the Quran is 80% of medicine. This is what Ibn al-Qayyum rahimahullah said.
Rahmatullahi alayhi.
In the books of Tib Nabawiyya. Medicine, the medicine of the Prophet was the medicine used in the time the Prophet ﷺ that he gave a taqreer to and approval to. And one of the simplest things that he gave an approval to, obviously, is fasting, eating azkar ta'am, pure food, not processed food, and also eating only when it was necessary to eat. Now, the amazing thing I find is this, that, you know, if we reduce our food intake, and if we reduce our calories, we eat the right kind of food, and we rest our system, you naturally elevate your immune suppression, you improve your health, you reduce the risk of diabetes, coronary heart disease, high blood pressure, all of these lifestyle diseases. And this isn't just in Ramadan. This should be our routine for the whole of the year. You know, 365 days a year, it should be about healthy. I find it so illogical and irrational that, Richard, that we have restraint, control. And then what? At iftar time, guess what happens?
It all goes out.
I can't believe it. Yeah. And you know, Richard, I could do a whole program just on this one point. At iftar time, it's so important that we break our fast with the right foods.
So what we're saying here is we have to be commit to this, and the commitment is to Allah Azza wa Jal.
Because people put all the way.
Yes, we have to commit to Allah Azza wa Jal.
No, go.
Yes, the commitment, it have to be for Allah Azza wa Jal. It will have to be a discipline that we can actually benefit from all year long. It's also, we have to be aware, we have to learn more about our own faith. It's very good to go and learn about the biology and different diets and try different things, but also it's very important to actually not to jilt our faith, because there's lots of wisdom and gems about the diet itself of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he used to actually eat. And one of the main advice in tip in actually strict guidance is not to be excessive. And Allah Azza wa Jal actually associated with his feeling by saying, I don't like the excessive people. And subhanallah, I mean, if you don't have this much powerful statement, when Allah Azza wa Jal say to you, I don't love the excessive people. So when you become excessive, and this is in the context of food, so don't eat and drink too much and excessive, because Allah Azza wa Jal don't like the people who excessively eat and drink. And subhanallah, this is powerful, especially in the month of Ramadan.
No. It's amazingly powerful. Now, Richard, the point I'm making here is this: that look, this compartmentalization, Ramadan, but then we don't use the principles of Ramadan outside of Ramadan.
Well, according to what we're saying, it's not just Ramadan, it's also the day of Ramadan. So the day of Ramadan will fast, and then the night of Ramadan is completely different story.
Yeah.
So at the iftar, we'll eat, some of us will eat excessively, continue to eat excessively, because in a few hours, we can't eat anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And they actually make themselves ill. I'm going to be. They're making themselves ill, and I'll explain the science behind it. But how about this as an interesting concept? Ramadan is all year round.
Well, there is Monday and Thursdays for people who observe, and the white days.
Okay, so this isn't bid'ah. This is not me making bid'ah.
Okay. All right. Oh, so you want to go? Okay. Let's consider Ramadan all year. Okay.
Atiullah wa Rasul. We obey Allah and we obey that. And look, shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. Okay, so this is the month of Ramadan.
Yes.
So alhamdulillah. Month of Ramadan. But what I'm saying is that the principles of Ramadan apply all year round. And you know, I always used to remind myself, the Sahaba radiallahu anhuma, for 6 months after Ramadan, they're still making dua to Allah, Rabbana taqabbal minna.
Yes.
Yeah? And for 6 months before Ramadan, okay, wa ballighna Ramadan, you know, give us the opportunity to be in Ramadan.
Sure.
Yeah? So it's almost like you could say that they were in 12 months in a process of wanting to continue with the values of what Ramadan are about: restraint, control, development, islah, reform, okay, rectification, all of these things. Now, Richard, as I said, I think this is very important. Why is it, and I'm going to pose this question, why is it in the month of Ramadan, actually people fast for 18, 20 hours long? And they've done research on this, and they found in the Muslim population that many people will maintain their weight as it is. Some people, actually, their weight increases, and for other people, the weight decreases. But the minority is the weight decrease. Most people stay the same, or their weight goes up. Why is it after fasting for all these hours in the day that people's weight goes up in Ramadan? Why is it, do you think? Or is it the case at all?
Because they eat excessively?
It's not so much. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the eating excessively, but you're right. What people are trying to do is they're trying to force more food into a smaller eating window, you know? And as a result of that, they become very bloated. Yeah. And plus the foods are all the wrong type of foods. There are foods which are highly calorific. There are foods where they're mixing, for example, carbohydrates and fat a lot. It's a very bad combination, carbohydrate and fat. Okay? You know, so the ratios of the foods that they're eating, there's not enough processed food, and then they're putting in, for example, it becomes it's almost like a washing machine. Samosa, pakora, followed by kebab, followed by rice, followed by fruit, followed by sweet, followed by this, followed by that, all into the washing machine together. Mix it all up, It's really not good. And then, you know, mixing chicken, fish, all this, is mixing it all up in there. Allahu Akbar. Really.
Allahu Akbar.
If people want to not get bloated and also not have what we call an insulin spike.
Okay.
Now, look, if you have been fasting for 18 hours a day, the biochemistry is this, that you become at the time of fasting what we call very insulin sensitive. That means the first food that you will do will immediately cause a rise in your insulin levels. If your insulin levels spikes up, guess what?
What?
Your body is saying, I need more glucose, more food, more food, more food. Okay? And so therefore you get hungrier and hungrier and you're eating more and more. And it's not because you need the food, it's because your insulin is telling you, that elevated levels of insulin are saying that, okay, I'm hungry, I need to take in more carbohydrates.
Okay.
So what's important to do is therefore eat foods which are what we call low GI foods. GI means the glycemic index. Okay. And the glycemic index means the amount of sugar in it and how much it's processed as quickly as possible into sugar. So if you're having what we call complex carbohydrates and low GI carbohydrates with high roughage as well, high levels of fiber, then what's happening is that you are not causing this massive increase in your insulin levels.
Okay.
The other thing is if you're having carbohydrate fat combination, then when that goes into your stomach after a whole day of fasting, your brain is telling your body store. So you store the carbohydrate as fat, and then the fat is also stored as fat as well. So that's why people actually end up putting on weight, interestingly, because they're eating the wrong combinations of food. So at the time of iftar, my advice to myself and everyone out there, the food that you eat at the actual time of iftar, remember, it's not just providing nourishment from Rabbil Alameen, okay? But it's also affecting your biochemistry.
Yeah.
It's affecting your whole system. You're putting something in that's going to affect your blood sugar levels, everything else. So make the iftar very, very small iftar. Okay. And of course, I think dates are an amazing superfood. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So maybe date, water, maybe a little bit of fruit. Okay. If you're going to eat a protein, make it sure it's a lean protein. Some of the worst foods at the time of iftar are things like pakora, samosa, fried foods.
Oh, the traditional
These are
one.
very, very.
This is standard.
These are all the good stuff. Richard, I know this is all the good stuff. Okay. What I would say in defense of myself, what I would say is that if you're a teenager or 20-year-old, you're young enough, your system can, alhamdulillah, sometimes take this kind of food.
In defense of yourself, yeah.
The older you get, the harder it is for your system to be able to metabolize this food. Yeah?
I'm feeling that.
So, so I think now, so at the time of iftar, my iftar, Richard, is just water.
Iftar is just water? Yeah, but
water.
You can't survive on water only.
Water, and maybe I'll have some watermelon, because watermelon is a very beautifully balanced food, okay, in terms of nutrition. So I'll just have water and watermelon, maybe one date. That's it. Okay. So that's my iftar. And then I allow my system to rest, because you've allowed this food to come in. Let it rest, Okay. Don't just go straight onto a mountain of eat. Let it rest. Okay. Then after Salatul Maghrib, after a little bit of time of letting the system rest, you have to then go to what I call your main meal. Okay. And given the window, your suhoor will be a very light suhoor as well. So it's important just to have this one meal. I want most people to just realize you should never let that meal go over. I know it's going to be in Ramadan, it's a bit difficult, but really 800, 900 calories. Okay, 1,000 calories at most. 1,000 calories at the most.
I thought the healthy level for a man is 2,000 calories a day.
Do you know what it is? Is this? I operate on 1,500 calories every day.
Okay.
I'm fine on 1,500 calories.
Okay.
I try not to go over 1,900 calories. And Richard, as you know, I train every day as well. Okay? I train. I'm people seeing. Oh, even though I fast and I eat 1,900 calories a day, I'm still 90. So I still maintain very large. I'm still very, obviously, I'm not thin and small. Okay, so I maintain quite a large level of mass. Okay, and actually, this is the other thing. Just on a side point, I spent 30 years bodybuilding. Everyone who knows I used to train. 30 years I spent in gym training.
Subhanallah.
Okay, or from the age of 17, I've been training non-stop, 4 or 5 days a week. I used to train. People know me. I used to, do powerlifting and everything else. And that is part of the reason I was completely obsessed with food, because when you're training, you used to eat.